Good morning. Good morning. Trying to get warmed up here. Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to Cooking with Chef Zee Live. Today we're making mini corn dog muffins. I know everybody will love that. Those are one of my favorites too, and this is going to be a really quick and easy recipe. Let me make sure we got our lighting and stuff straight here. Hang on. So we're still going to wait for a few more people to join. Okay. I think that's a little bit better. It's a little dark in here. But yeah, so how's everybody doing? Hopefully everybody's having a good old time, learning some good stuff, spending time with your family. Today we're going to do something really exciting, which I know every kid loves corn dogs. So this should be really great today. I'm going to wait a few more minutes for a couple of people to join in, and then we'll get started. Just gotta get that morning coffee in. Make sure we wash our hands. We're gonna lather up that soap. We're washing our hands for, does anybody remember how many minutes, or I guess what could we be singing? Our happy birthday song or ABC, 20 to 30 seconds. For like antibacterial soap, so it'll get all the bacteria off. You want some hot water, as hot as you can take it. Really, really, really warm. Not burn your hands warm, but just really warm, so we get all that bacteria off. You wash your hands before you get in the kitchen as a chef. Make sure you're not passing on any foodborne illnesses to anybody. Corn dog nuggets. These are easy. You can do this at home. I'm sure you have most of the ingredients at home. So, let me see if I can get the camera in a little bit closer. So we have, I actually brought this out because I know a lot of people have Jiffy in the house. It's a Jiffy corn muffin mix. You can use that. Or if you have the straight cornmeal, yellow cornmeal, white cornmeal, either of them will do. We're going to be using that today. We got our flour, we got our salt, baking soda. This I know a lot of you may not have because I didn't have it. So the recipe calls for buttermilk. You need a cup of buttermilk. So let me just kind of explain to you guys a little bit. So buttermilk, if you don't have buttermilk in your house, what you can do is you can take a cup of milk, whatever milk you drink. We drink lactose-free milk here. My son is allergic to milk. So we have a cup of milk, and then what you can do is put one tablespoon of vinegar or lemon juice, and that will make you some buttermilk. So you got a tablespoon of lemon juice or vinegar. I use white vinegar this morning. And you just literally put a tablespoon of the white vinegar into a cup of the milk. And it's always a tablespoon to a cup. If it calls for 2 cups, then it means you're putting 2 of those. Yep. Mix it up, let it sit for about 5 minutes, and you got buttermilk. So, calls for a cup of buttermilk. I've already got that mixed up for you guys. And then we've got our salt, our sugar, and it calls for a half a stick of butter, which is 8 tablespoons. I'm sorry, my mind went blank. But yeah, so you're gonna stick that. You can stick that in the microwave. Have your parents help you out. Melt it so it's nice and melted. We're gonna need 2 eggs. So I'll just go through all the ingredients that you're gonna need. So basically, you're gonna need the half cup of butter, which we all know that 8 tablespoons equals a half. And then in order to make a whole, you need 2 of these. So we just need 1/2 of a cup. That's equal to 1 cup. You need 1/2 cup of sugar. You're gonna need 2 eggs, 1 cup of buttermilk, which we just talked about to make that, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, which we have. You're gonna need the cornmeal. If you have the fresh cornmeal, you can use that. If you have Jiffy, you can just use this whole container of Jiffy. I made some yesterday, turned out really great, and I used Jiffy, that's why it's empty. So everybody loves Jiffy. So you can use that 1 container of Jiffy for this recipe. If you don't have Jiffy and you have the fresh cornmeal, white or yellow, you can use that as well. So you're gonna need 1 cup of that. And then also you'll need a cup of flour. In the recipe, you'll need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then you'll need some hot dogs. You can use whatever you want. I actually got some chicken franks. And these were on sale at the store, so I just picked these up. And we're gonna cut those up into 1-inch chunks so that we can put them in to make our corn dog muffins. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. It's about 7 after. I think it should be ample enough time. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna go ahead and shift the camera for you guys to see what I am doing. So, the first thing we're gonna start with is we're gonna go ahead, matter of fact, let's go ahead and melt our butter. So we're gonna stick our butter into the microwave. It can be messy. I left this out at room temperature. I always keep room temperature butter because I bake a lot. And the recipe always calls for room temperature butter or room temperature egg. Usually when you're baking, you want to make sure your egg and your butter are room temperature if the recipe calls for either or. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to stick that into the microwave. I would say about 20 seconds in the microwave. Let's see. About 20 seconds. And we'll let that melt down a little bit. So, kids, if you're melting the butter in the microwave, again, have an adult help you. And also be careful because the container might be hot when you take it out of the microwave. So, we're going to go ahead, get that going. Let's see, it should be, ready. Yep, just a little hot. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take that butter. I'm bringing that over here. And we don't want the butter to be really hot because we don't want to cook our eggs. So eggs are at room temperature. I'm going to go ahead. And usually, I always show this in class, but usually you're going to break your egg. You tap it lightly on the counter. Don't tap it on the edge. When you tap it on the edge, it leaves room for the shell to get into your batter or into your bowl. So just lightly tap it until you see just a little crack like that. Take your 2 thumbs and put it into the crack and then break it open. Make sure, because a lot of students, what'll happen is they'll break the egg and they'll be standing over here, and instead of right over the bowl, it'll end up on the floor. So let's just make sure that we have it to where we're right over whatever we're putting it into. We take our 2 thumbs, put into that hole, break it open. Now, anytime you're dealing with eggs, you want to make sure you wash your hand. You're very careful with that because the yolk, the yellow part of the egg, carries salmonella. So we tap it lightly, see that little crack, put our thumb in there, and break it open. All right, I'm gonna just rinse my hand a little bit. All right, so we got our eggs. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pour our butter. Best thing you probably have for this is gonna be a whisk. So we're gonna pour that butter in and start to whisk. You see, whisking motion, we're not mixing. We're actually gonna put a little bit of air into it. So we're whisking with that motion. Okay? All right, so whisk in our butter. And we're gonna go ahead and add our sugar in. Let's see, so we've got a 1/2 cup of sugar. So we've got our 1/2 cup, and we're going to do a 1/2 cup of sugar. Let's see if I measured that out right. Yep, so that's already measured out. We've got a 1/2 cup of sugar, and add that in. We're gonna go ahead and whisk that together as well. So we've added in our 1/2 cup of butter. We got our 1/2 cup of sugar, and that butter was melted. We added in 2 eggs. So now we're going to add in our cup of buttermilk. Remember, we said 1 tablespoon of either lemon juice or vinegar, white vinegar, to 1 cup of milk. We'll give you some buttermilk and just let it sit for 5 minutes. So yes, it will be a little lumpy. So we're adding all of that milk in. And again, we are going to whisk everything up. So earlier on, which I could have done, is to go ahead and to the side in a separate bowl. You always want to have your wet ingredients in one container, your dry ingredients in the other. So we're going to get another container for our dry ingredients. All right, so the first dry ingredient that we're going to need, or that we're going to put in, is going to be our flour. And I've got 1 cup of flour. Remember, we're leveling everything off to get an equal measurement. So we fill that up. Here, and I'll bring the camera down a little bit. So we're gonna fill that up. And then you kind of like karate chop with your hand as straight as can be. Or if you have a spatula or a knife, you could literally just rake it across the top. A lot of the kids, I just tell them to fill it all the way up, take their hand and karate chop it, and you've got a leveled out measurement. So we needed 1 cup. All right, and then we get our cornmeal. Let's see, let's slide that over so you guys can see. So we've got our cornmeal. Yummy, yummy cornmeal. So we're gonna need 1 cup of cornmeal as well. 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of cornmeal. And that's pretty even. So go ahead and add that in. All right, so we need our baking soda. I did take the liberty of scooping out a little bit of baking soda, so we're gonna go ahead and put 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda into our recipe. All right, so we got 1 teaspoon. Same thing with that. You wanna make sure that that's leveled as well. And we're gonna add that in, putting all the dry ingredients together. All right, so we got our flour, 1 cup of flour, got 1 cup of cornmeal. We have 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. We're gonna go ahead and get another, let's see, it's our 1/2 teaspoon. We're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So guys, this recipe is pretty easy. If you haven't seen already, this is easy. Not that many ingredients to it. And they come out really, really good. So we got 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Put that in. And just kind of mix up the dry ingredients. Get it nice and incorporated. You can use a whisk for that as well to incorporate it, or I'm just using a spatula, so we're gonna mix that up. All right, so that's good to go. Now we are going to combine the wet to the dry ingredients. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. We've got our whisk in our container. Get that down for you. All right, so we got our whisk ready, and we're gonna go ahead and add it in slowly. Usually you always try to do 2 batches. So you add it in the first batch, because you don't want to, because we have gluten in our flour, we don't want to, gluten has some elastic molecules, and we don't want to over mix. So we do it in two steps. There's a lot of things that can happen when you over mix your batter, especially if it has gluten in there, or gluten. It'll actually have your cakes, if you're doing cakes, you'll have almost like a mountain peak on top of the cake, which is wasted cake, because you can't stack 2 cakes on top of each other with a big old volcano or big peak on the top. So literally you have to end up cutting it off to level it out. So to avoid that, you want to make sure you don't over mix your batter. So get all your wet ingredients done together and incorporated, and then you have your dry ingredients. So all right, so we are done with that portion. So that is going to be our batter for the corn dog muffins. Now we need to cut up our hot dogs. All right, so we're just going to set this to the side. And we're going to go ahead and get our station ready for our hot dogs. When I did this recipe the other day, it took maybe about 3 to 4 hot dogs. I have the little mini muffin pans, and those hold about 24, they have about 24 little sections for the muffins, so it just depends. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut our hot dogs up. These are chicken dogs. So I guess they'll be chicken corn dog muffins. So remember our knife skills as well. We hold a knife like we're riding a bicycle. Get you guys up here. So we're holding the knife like we're riding a bicycle, right? Just like that. And take the other hand, and for cutting something like a hot dog, or onion, or any of those, you want to go ahead and do like a bear claw. So we're doing bear claw, and you stick your thumb in. And then you're going to use that thumb to help push the food towards the blade. All right, so we have the hot dog, got it there, and we're doing 1 inch thick. So maybe 1 hot dog will probably get you about 4. So we got those. We're gonna go ahead and get those cut. And I'll put those into, I have a little bowl right here. All right, so we've got a few of those cut up. We're gonna go ahead and go over to the stove where we have our muffin pan. So here's a muffin pan that I'm using for today. Like I said, it has about 24 little sections that you can put your muffins into. You want to make sure that you spray it really, really good, because you don't want the muffins to stick. When they're done, you want them to just pop right out. So now you can use, I have a ice cream scooper. I always use ice cream scoopers because it helps to actually portion everything out correctly. If you have a spoon, just use a regular old spoon. Scoop it and put it into the little sections. You don't want to fill it all the way up to the top, because you want to leave room for it to expand. If you fill it all the way to the top, stick the dog into it, it's going to overflow all over your oven. So just don't fill it up all the way, halfway, so enough to put the dog in, because once you put that dog or the hot dog or frank in there, it's going to kind of lift the dough up a little bit, and then once it starts baking, because we have the baking soda in there, it's going to rise. All right, so let's go ahead and oil our baking pan. So I use Pam. I like cooking spray. It's real easy. Back in the day, I was responsible as the oldest when my mother was cooking in the kitchen to take the paper from the butter, cut it, and take that same paper and grease the baking pan, and then flour it and stand over the sink and make sure that flour was around the whole baking pan. I hated it. But now, look at me. So we're going to make sure that we oil that really well. Make sure you get the spray into each little hole so there's no room for sticking. It'll pop right out when it's done. All right. So, like I said, I did have my fancy scooper. I'm going to go ahead and do the spoon because that'll be a lot easier. Let's see if I can bring this down a little bit so you guys can see what I'm doing. All right, we're done with the whisk, so go ahead and stick that into the sink. All right, so you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna spoon some into each little hole. And I'll just show you what it looks like. So that is what I'm doing. I'm not filling it all the way to the top, but just halfway. That way we leave room for them to expand. Go ahead and fill the rest of these. It's pretty easy. So I think everybody will be able to do this without parents' help. I think you guys will ace this. This part usually gets a little tricky. Chef Zee has steady hands, so I'm not spilling it all over the baking pan, because that's the other thing, is the worst. When it comes to washing dishes, these little cupcake baking trays get, especially when you're spooning them on like this and you get the drips everywhere, it's hard to clean that up when you go to wash the dishes, because after they bake, it's nice and sticky and hard. So I always try to make sure I'm steady in the beginning, because then it makes it easier to do the dishes at the end. If you know what I mean. All right, so we got about 4 more to fill. We're gonna go ahead and put our dogs in there, and then we're gonna set our oven to 375 and get them in the oven so it'll be nice and ready. You can have this just in time for lunch. All right, so we went ahead and we filled those up. So now we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put our hot dogs in there. We pre-cut those up. Remember, we did about 1 inch thick on the hot dogs. We're gonna go ahead and put those into the center. And again, like I said, to make sure we leave room for everything to expand, we're gonna make sure that we don't fill them all the way. So we're just sticking them in just like that. Oops. See, you probably get a younger brother or sister to help you fill these, or get your parents to help you fill them. So fill those up. Let's see, we're almost done. And I think we cut just enough. We'll leave the extra ones because, of course, you can still eat this batter. It actually comes out as little corn muffins. So we'll leave those. We're going to go ahead and stick those in the oven. Set your oven at 375. Let me make sure I've got my handy gloves. Now, I have already prepared some for you guys because I knew that this would take a little bit longer. So we're going to take those out of the oven, and we're going to go ahead and put these into the oven. All right, so we got that in there. And we have these that are ready for us to try now. Let's see how they come out. You can let yours, I let mine get a little bit browner. I like them brown. You don't have to. You can take them out just a little bit sooner. But when they're golden brown, they're ready. And if you see, you should be able to, if you grease them really well, you should be able to literally lift them up and see they come right out. So we're gonna go ahead and get a plate because I wanna try one. So we're gonna put some onto a plate. That would be my little snack right now. Ooh, it's still kind of hot. You know what? Like, obviously, it'll help if you have a little spatula to scoop them out. And see what I mean about making sure that we grease the pan well. Because of course, what'll happen is they will get stuck to the bottom. And you don't want that to happen. So, well, that's good. We'll leave that one there. I think a lot of them is because of the juices from the hot dog. Let's see if I can get that one out. I think I can get that out. All right, so there we go. So we have the corn dog muffins, and I like mine with mustard. Some people like ketchup. It really is your preference on what you like. I'm going to do some mustard. Alright, we're going to take our corn dog and dip that in. And here we are. Got our corn dog muffins. So I'm going to try one. Pretty good. So, I love cornbread. And I'm talking with food in my mouth. So. So, I thank you guys for coming into Chef Zee's kitchen. Excuse me. It's not like on TV where they take a bite into it and they're able to talk right after and everything's fine. I'm still trying to chew my food. But thank you guys for coming to Chef Zee's kitchen. We'll be on next Thursday again at 10 a.m. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them down at the bottom. Send them on Pine Camp's website, and I'll be glad to answer your questions. As always, thank you again for coming into Chef Zee's kitchen. Make sure you are being safe in this COVID-19 pandemic. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day.